So in this video, I thought we'd talk about Gadisha, which has in fact now been renamed as Clarkia. So I'll talk about how it grows, how well it grows, how you can use it as a cut flower, collect the seeds, and how whether it's hardy, what conditions it grows in. All right, so let's get into that. Now, before I continue with the video, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment, share with your friends, etc. Especially because I've had COVID, which means I haven't posted for a while, and the YouTube algorithm kind of you start to get a little bit buried when that happens. So please give me a little vote of encouragement by liking and subscribing, etc. Okay, so let's get into this Godisha. So yes, so they've reclassified Godisha as Clarkia. It's causing a lot of confusion, even with me. I'm even thinking, am I even saying this right? But I think I am. They can still be found. Often they're still called Gadisha. So if you're looking for seeds, they're called Gadisha. You can still find them. But there are different types, and this is a more cottage gardeny type. And obviously, as you can see here, I did use it also as a cut flower, which it also performs very well with, and it went particularly well with sweet peas, which were also flowering at the same time, and also some pink larkspurs. It looked really nice with, and you can see I got a little bit of buddleia there with it as well. So it was a great performer. So the reason I thought I'd do a video on it was because it just really did look good, and I never got round to doing a video on it at the time that it was flowering, but luckily I did take this footage of it. So it grew really well. I sowed it back in April, and I sowed it in the raised bed I have just by my greenhouse. And what's really important about the winning factor in this plant is that two factors with the raised bed were: one, it was shady. So I got morning sun till about 12 or 1 o'clock. And then after that, the sun went behind the tree, which I've tried to trim, but it grows faster than I trim it. So it ended up back in shade. And then the rest of the light, although it might be bright light in the summer, it's not really getting direct light there. And despite that, it flowered prolifically and did really well. So if you've got a spot like that in your garden that you can't grow the more sun-loving plants in, then I definitely recommend Gadisha. Now it does like some sun, so it did have some, as I say, from morning right through till sort of lunchtime, 1 o'clock. After that, it didn't really get any direct sun. So, and it still flowered beautifully. So that brings me to the second problem, which it just absolutely breezed through, which is slugs. So because of the shade in this raised bed here, I had a real problem with slugs. On the right of this image here, you can see poppies. Poppies are also pretty slug resistant, although some slugs did in fact even eat the poppies. But in general, they did resist it. But the Gadisha almost entirely resisted the slugs without any need for chemicals or slug repellents, which of course is how my garden operates. I don't use any chemicals or pesticides on my garden at all. So that makes this absolutely a great result, because it just, common garden problems that affect a lot of plants did not seem to affect this one. So afternoon shade and slugs just didn't take it down, which is a great result for me. So I'll be growing this again, definitely. In fact, it's already self-seeding, which I'll show you again, which I'll show you at the end of the video. I'll show you the harvesting the seeds, and it's self-seeding. It's tall, it grows on these tall stems. So if you think like snapdragons and foxgloves, but more delicate. So it doesn't have the trumpets that you get with the snapdragons and the foxgloves. It is actually, though they are floral stems, a bit more like the verbascum actually. So it's a really beautiful plant. Now, I didn't stake mine because I completely underestimated how tall it would grow. It has really tall, long stems. Now, if you're growing it in a cottage garden and you want it to just be a little bit shorter and a bit more chaotic, you don't have to stake it. It will kind of create this kind of crazy mound like I've got here. But I think on balance, if I was doing it again, I'd probably give it at least support up to the midway point, which is probably about 50 sorry, 50, yeah, about 50 centimeters, and then it can kind of, the rest of it will support itself. Cut flower wise, it lasted quite well in the vase. It probably could have done better. I probably could do better with experimenting at the optimum time to harvest it, because it is the first time I've grown it. It did seem to flower for a long time, so that's another thing to bear in mind, because obviously the flowers, it just keeps flowering all the way up the stems. When it first begins to flower, it's almost kind of, I remember thinking, well, it's pretty pathetic this, But as those flowers start opening up the stem, all at the same time on the whole sort of mound of the ones I sowed, I didn't thin these at all, then you can see it creates a pretty impactful view of, and as you can see here, also great for the pollinators. So I just thought overall, it was a beautiful flower, and I would definitely grow it again. But as I said, I don't even need to grow it again. It has already self-seeded, so it's already started putting on foliage for next year, which means hopefully next year it's going to not only flower in the same place and fill up more space in this border, it also means now is a good time to sow it for overwintering next year. So if you haven't already, you can sow it now. But I think it's just a great cottage garden plant, because it's just like Nigella is another one that's very easy, self-seeding, and then it's hardy as well. It's a hardy annual, so it will overwinter. It'll kind of like, once it's got enough green on, as the winter starts to approach, it will just sort of go dormant, but it won't die. And then come spring next year, it will take off and it will flower earlier, which opens up the possibility, if you think I sowed these in April and they flowered by July, then if you've got them overwintering, they're going to flower sooner, and that opens up the possibility of having obviously a succession of them, so you could still sow them even if you sow them now and overwinter them, then you will still be able to sow some more in April and have a second flush. So they're great on that score as well. So great as a cut flower, absolutely exquisite as a cottage garden flower. Really can't do any worse, really. It self-seeds, it resists slugs, it fills up a big space with all these jolly flowers. It can fill up a difficult space, such as a shady spot, something that gets maybe afternoon shade or morning shade, whichever. I mean, it seems to, obviously, in my case, it's done well with morning sun and afternoon shade. I don't know whether the reverse would work, but I don't see why it wouldn't. It seems a pretty hardy plant. And then I collected the seeds. So I have a ton more seeds. I mean, I have, even though I've collected a load of seeds, you can see here that the seeds have nonetheless self-seeded as well. So there's been enough now to fill up this space again for next year. But also now I have some seeds that I can sow in another part of the garden, or just use for cut flowers next year. So you really cannot go wrong. The seeds are inside this little pod. They're like little staples, and you can just sort of push them out in a little row, and they're perfect. They're like any seed. Obviously harvest them when they are dry. And so that's it. What else can I say? This is just the perfect cottage garden plant, cut flower plant. You can sow it now if you're in a zone, I would say, where you probably not going to get frost for until October, November. You still have time to sow them now. They will put on enough green and they will survive the winter. So they're really hardy, down to like -10. So, give it a go. And you can tell that they're handy in the sense that when they self-seed, they're not a weed, because they have this little white marking on them. So you know that that's the same plant growing again next year. So in so many ways, it's just the perfect plant. Really easy for a beginner. If you're new to gardening, I definitely recommend this one. It's an absolute corker all round. Okay, all right. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe because, you know, I've fallen foul of the algorithm by being ill and getting COVID. Well, I think it was COVID. Honestly, I didn't do a test, but quite a few people I know have had it, so I'm guessing it's the same thing. And, you know, so you have to go and be a hermit and, you know, and I actually lost my voice completely, so I couldn't do any videos. So please boost my video by liking and subscribing and commenting, and I'll see you again in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.